Evelyn, somebody's already written in and said, ma'am, there are so many teaching methods to teach autism. Which is the best and authentic? And I think that's a great place for us to start today.
Yeah, it's such a good place, because autism is actually, it's not new, but the increase is new. And with the increase, like when I started in the autism field, there was only one curriculum out there for autism. And it was the one that everybody went to, not because it was the best, but because that's what was available. And since that time, and unfortunately, due to the increase, unfortunately, there was an increase in autism, but fortunately with that increase, that means more people had to pay attention and more people had to look and see what works. Right now, the only research-backed intervention method that is effective is ABA. Okay, that's the only one that has many, many studies on it now, and shows that with early intensive treatment, that the more hours there are, the more repetition there is, the more likely the child with autism is going to be able to learn all that he can learn. And that is the important part, is that, you know, the kids with autism or adults with autism, they all just don't learn the typical way. And that's the main thing, but they all can learn. It's that which way is going to work for this child, you know, this person. And so really I would start in the ABA field. And once you're in the ABA field, ABA is like an umbrella. And under the umbrella of ABA, there's many, many forms of teaching. There's discrete trial teaching, which is very structured and very broken into small components and repetition, and doesn't look normal at all because of the repetition. But sometimes it's the breakthrough way of finally getting the kids' attention to realize in all the repetition that, oh, this is what you want me to do. And, you know, and sometimes natural environment training, which is more natural and, you know, to day-to-day life, which I would say probably looks more normal, but the thing is you can't capture as many opportunities to learn if you're just waiting for opportunities to emerge. So that intensity is harder to replicate in that natural environment way. And then it goes on to all these other different types of teaching under ABA too. And what I would say is most people start with discrete trial training, and then they slowly break into working on, well, this part works for my child, this doesn't. Well, now I'm going to move one, maybe I can learn one type of, you know, learning like play into more of the natural environment, because that is more, there's more opportunities to play and learn. And maybe there's another, maybe language needs to stay in this other form. But I'd say really talk to your ABA provider and to make sure. One of the things is you do what the child needs, you know, and if the child is not learning, you're going to switch it up a little bit and figure out what's out there. And there's enough under the ABA umbrella that you can switch and try different methods of interventions. And really, you know, you're going to push your ABA provider to say, I don't think this is really working. This part is working in this area, but not for this other one. You're going to be asking them to try another way, because you never know, you know, and you know, every child is different, and the whole purpose is to make the ABA individualized to your child. And don't be, you know, closed-minded, listen and figure out. Sometimes we like to do what we know. Don't let that be the limit to you. You know, I talk to families all the time, and, you know, sure, something worked for maybe the first year, but now they're in the second year and your child knows more, is more aware, and maybe there's a different way to do it now. And it doesn't have to be all or none. It can be a little bit this, a little bit of that. It can move slowly from one area to another. You know, I talked to a family yesterday. I have I think he's 24. And, you know, she's like, well, we've always done it this way. And I said, but, you know, from what you're telling me, it's intruding on your life. And it's intruding on his life. So maybe during that period of time in his day, you aren't doing that, because that's not what works. And just like a light bulb went off in her head. And she said, you know what? It's true. My frustration is I'm trying to do two different things at the same time with him. And there's a vocational part of him. And I said, there's a time to learn and a time to just do. And if the child already has learned how to do something, and maybe now it's time to work, you just, you know, that's that time. So I would say that, you know, really go to your ABA provider and say, hey, you know, really honestly look at what your child is doing, no matter what the age, and see like what part is still very effective and what part probably maybe is not moving as fast as you'd like. So maybe you do want to try another way. But you also have to lean into the judgment of your behavior analyst too, because they might have a reason for staying in a certain, sometimes we stay in a certain area longer than it looks like it should be, but a lot of times there's something else that you're seeking in that, you know, in that place. Maybe you're seeking to see some type of generalization that the child's learned how to take this information out to the world. Or maybe sometimes it's just through the data collected by your behavior analyst, they know that if they keep something in for a month in this very formal way, that it doesn't go away then, that it just gets embedded into the thought. And then after a month of where you know that if you leave that way of doing it, it won't get lost.
Yeah.
You know, so there's a reason and a way, but don't get stuck, but ask lots of questions. It's your right as a parent to keep asking about like, is this working or is it not working? And just give yourself a break and give your BCBA a break. But, you know, there's many, under the ABA umbrella, there's a lot of different methods of teaching, and just take advantage of that.
Yeah, I always say that ABA is like a toolbox, and that each child is going to create a different painting, and it's going to look different, but we got a bunch of tools. And for one child, we're going to use more of the tools at one end of the toolbox, and so on and so forth. So it is a toolbox, which means that you have to have a really skilled artisan to help you to use the tools. And those skilled artisans are called BCBAs, Board Certified Behavior Analysts. That's what Evelyn is. And there are tons of them around the world now. It is so important that you find someone who is a BCBA who is skilled in autism, because the truth of the matter is that ABA gets used in all different kinds of forms, not just autism. So work with a good ABA agency that has good skilled BCBAs. I only ever used CARD, and I love them. And so I speak about CARD here. It's just not a coincidence. It's because, as I said, they gave us back our lives and our child. I always say here, though, CARD is not the only ABA provider that is out there. There are many good quality ABA providers, but guess what? There are many more that are not good quality ABA providers. So please be careful that you are using a good quality ABA provider and that you are working collaboratively with them. You can even come to CARD where, you know, they're doing the top level ABA, and if you don't work with them, you are not, statistically, you are not going to have the results that you want to have. So make sure that you work collaboratively with your ABA provider and be willing to do the things and the amount of ABA that they are asking you to do. You know, there's been a lot of research, and some of it done at CARD, and they have found that, you know, we all want the same thing, right? We want for all of us to make the most progress that we can, and for our kids to make the most progress. So what's the recipe? And what they found is that there are 3 indicators of the kids who make the most success, right? Because every kid is different, and some kids have more than just autism. They have other diagnoses as well. But across the board, the kids who do better are kids who get the most opportunity, which means they get the most hours or their full prescription that we talk about here. They have a good, strong, experienced BCBA somewhere on their case, either their direct supervisor or supervising their supervisor, right? And at CARD, you automatically have that. And then the third thing is parent participation, that the parents learn what the therapists are doing. That's the hardest part, right? Well, I think that the first one and the last one are the hardest part, but here's the good news. We're in control of that as parents. If you want to make sure that your kid is making the most progress, do those things, participate, and give them the opportunity, give them the hours. But when people do that, all of the kids make progress. They end up in different places, but they all make progress. Tell me if I'm telling anything untrue, Evelyn.
Nope. I always tell people, the parents, when they come in, because parents always want to know, like, how much progress is my child going to make? And I always say, I can't tell you how much, but they all make progress.
Yep.
you know?
Yeah. And the more you do those, I loved when Jem went to go to high school, my son, we went to the open house, and the one English teacher who's just awesome. She's just incredible. And she said to the kids, look, you're going to hear a lot of things today, but here are the three things you got to do on a regular basis. And if you do these three things, in 4 years, you're going to graduate with a high school degree and you'll have done fine and you'll have learned a lot. You have to come. You have to be here, because if you're not here, I can't teach you. I'm good, but I'm not that good, right? And we didn't have distance learning then. So she said, you got to be here. Well, that pairs up with you got to give your kid the opportunity. And if you cancel your therapy or say, we're not going to do as many hours, they're not there. She said, you got to do your homework. And for me, that's the part where parents got to learn this too. And you got to try it, and it's going to be frustrating. And sometimes you're going to fail, whatever. And the third thing that she said was, you got to ask questions. And I think that's the part that keys into the BCBAs. You got to work collaboratively with your team. But the three things: you got to be here, you got to do your homework, and you got to ask questions. If you'll do that's all you got to do. You don't have to do more than that. Just do those three things. And whenever we would get into a sticky gummy part of high school, I would say to him, are we doing the three things? Because if we're doing the three things, that's all we got to do. So I'm telling you, here are the three things you got to do. You got to get it. First of all, you got to start with ABA. Then you got to give your kid the most opportunity. Make sure you're working with a BCBA with your ABA, and ask them questions and work collaboratively with them, and then learn what they learn. If you do those three things, you are not going to end up in a bad place. So there, I've got a soapbox. Joanne would be happy.
Hey, thanks for watching Autism Live. To subscribe, click here. And if you'd like to check out some more of our videos, click here.